Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a Battlefield 6 open beta settings guide, so you guys can set your games up a little better with some very important settings. The settings menu in Battlefield 6 so far are really confusing. It's a maze of stuff. There's a lot of hidden menus that you could miss completely that have very important settings. So I'm just going to go through everything in order here, starting from accessibility, going down all the way to extras here. And I'm going to be pointing out important things that you should consider changing. So with that being said, if you enjoy this type of content, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and swing by a stream. I'll be streaming the Battlefield 6 beta basically every single day it's available. And if you watch my stream for 30 minutes, you can get access to the beta yourself. So first link in the description, follow the stream, and let's get right into this. Alright, so the way this is going to work, basically, I'm just going to scroll through all of these different menus here, and I'm going to cover the most important things, or things that really actually matter. This is the audio section in accessibility. That's where we're starting. Menu narration, anything to do with subtitles are found here, including subtitle settings. Whenever you see these custom modify things, that is a menu you can click on that opens another menu, okay? Here's where you find your master volume, and this is for tinnitus, I think. This might have something to do with flashbangs, but it also may be for people that have tinnitus. I don't necessarily know, but I feel as though it's important to point out. It could be relevant to quite a few people. So this is where this is accessibility graphics. This is where you find your colorblind setting presets, and this is where you can do your custom colors. You can come in here and do all of your color profiles. This is where you find your brightness. Camera effects, this is super important. So I would just copy all of these settings. World motion blur 0, weapon motion blur 0, you don't want any of that. Soldier HUD motion can be disorienting, and you don't really want your HUD moving around when you're playing the game. So definitely turn that off. Camera shake amount, turn that all the way down. I think it defaults to something insane like 80. So going from 80 to 20 is certainly a massive jump in that effect. Highly recommend turning that down. Chromatic aberration, turn that off. I think it's some sort of rainbowy lens flare effect that just gets in the way. It also eats FPS a little bit. And then infantry crosshair projection. Basically, if you want your crosshair to never move, your hip fire crosshair, not your weapon sight, okay? Your hip fire crosshair, you want it to remain static at the center of your screen. You want to keep this off, okay? That's really all you need to know with that. Moving on, this is where you find all of your hold and toggle settings. There's an important thing I need to point out here. If you are looking for auto sprint, it is actually hidden within double tap forward sprint. If you look at this, auto sprint is hidden within that menu. So if you're looking for that setting and you couldn't find it, that is where it is. Accessibility, controls, hold toggle. This is where you find all your controller vibration settings, chat settings, little tutorials if you want them on or off. You can reset to your tutorials, and this is where you find all of your hints. This is all within accessibility. Moving on to gameplay. This is where you find all of your vertical look settings, invert settings, again, your hold toggle settings. There are redundant menus in this game. We are in the gameplay section just to make sure. There's an annoying bug where whenever I exit a menu, say like if I go in here and then I hit escape, it takes me back to accessibility. So I'm going to be pointing out what section I'm in this video quite a bit. Sorry if I repeat myself. This is an important setting for quite a few people. People were complaining that they didn't like the flag borders that outline the flags in Battlefield 6. So if you don't like that, you go into gameplay, global, and you can actually turn them off. So I like having them on because I personally just enjoy seeing the flag border more clearly, but some people don't. This is where you find all of your infantry stuff. So we got aim sensitivity. This is for controller, okay? There's been some confusion. This particular setting, infantry aim sensitivity, is for controller. Infantry mouse aim sensitivity is obviously for your mouse. Some more settings that we already went over, some toggles here that are redundantly mentioned. Inventory visibility, not entirely sure what that means right now. This is where you find all of your vehicle aim sensitivity, aircraft, vehicle boost, toggle, or hold. This is where you find all of your controller aim assist settings. So again, gameplay, if you want to find any sort of controller aim assist setting, here it is to mess around with it. I don't have any sort of aim assist recommendations. I'm a mouse and keyboard player, so for this video, I will definitely be skipping over some controller settings. I know that may disappoint some people, but I will link in the video description a very good controller guide for you guys, okay? Again, this is just controller, so I will link the guide in the description for that. Now, for mouse and keyboard, this is where you come in and you can find all your control settings here. So that means uniform soldier aiming, right? Some people may be confused. This used to be called uniform soldier aiming in previous Battlefield games. They renamed it to uniform infantry aiming for confusion purposes, I suppose. Thank you, DICE. So, what do you need to know about uniform soldier aiming? Well, TLDR is sensitivity is personal preference, and you need to try out all sorts of different things to find what is best for you. This defaults to 133, okay? The other two things you should try out are 178, okay? 178 and 0, okay? Again, I'm not going to go into it. Just know that the three things you should try on this setting, 0, 133, and 178, see what you like the most, okay? In terms of other aim sensitivity, this is again a redundant setting for aim sensitivity. This is invert vertical look infantry. This is your field of view in here, but we'll get into that in a later menu. This is where you find a lot of movement settings, so you can have a toggle sprint here. Again, auto sprint if you want it. You can bind a different sprint key here, bind a different slide key, toggle sprint, all that, crouch toggle sprint, all that. Where you find all of your zoom settings as well, steady scope toggle. And then other, so this is, just to remind everybody where this menu is, this is in mouse and keyboard, control settings, and then if you scroll all the way down, you find other. This is where you find stuff like parachute auto deploy, interact and reload, skip revive, and all sorts of interact and invert demolition charge. So, a bunch of other weird stuff in there. And the menu bugged, because of course it is, right? We're still in mouse and keyboard. This is where you find all of your infantry key binds, right? So you can go in and bind everything here. No recommendations for key binds. Again, personal preference. It really depends on what you're doing. This is where you find all of your vehicle stuff, ladies and gentlemen. So vehicle mouse aim sensitivity, vehicle controls, all sorts of separate vehicle controls, ground vehicle, transport vehicle, aircraft, helicopter, gunner, all sorts of stuff. In the other section of this, we find UI keybinds. So again, this is stuff like scoreboard, push to talk, squad chat channel, just stuff relevant to the UI prompts. And then the final setting in mouse and keyboard is advanced settings. This is where you interestingly find mouse raw input. Make sure this is on, because the mouse feels really good in this game. So make sure mouse raw input is on. I believe it is on by default. And this is where you find the brand new flick look mode setting. Again, I will link a video in the description that I believe goes over this. TLDR, you can bind a key to do like an instantaneous 180. I think this is more of a controller setting, but you can do it on mouse and keyboard. It's a little stupid. I'm not going to lie to you. Now, in the graphics settings here, again, this is partially personal preference. If you want your game to look incredible and you don't care about frame rate, you can skip this section. But if you do care about frame rate, pay attention to this section, okay? So for performance preset, just set this to custom. Graphics quality, set it to custom. And then we go into graphics options here. And I'm still testing a few things, but as you can see, basically, if you want the best FPS, you're just going to have to set the game to low. That's just how it is in this game. In my experience, you don't have to have mesh on ultra for this game. In Battlefield 1, and I think in Battlefield 4 as well, it was recommended to use mesh ultra because I think this has something to do with like draw distance and all that. So this prevents pop-ins. In this game, I played literally, I think 16 hours today. Never had a pop-in, never had a problem. So you can play mesh low in this game. And this setting down here, I read it and it says this is high fidelity objects amount. The reason why I'm pointing this setting out to you is if you read the description, set infantry and vehicle visual quality in relation to the highest fidelity animations, sounds, and effects. The reason why the setting is important is I thought I would test this between low and ultra because it affected sounds. So maybe I thought, you know, oh, this could potentially affect footsteps. Turns out footsteps in Battlefield 6 are very, very few and far between, regardless of what you play with this setting. So again, I just recommend just turning everything to low if you really do want the best performance out of your system. This game is not great when it comes to optimization. This is where you find your brightness setting. Again, monitor dependent, personal preference sort of thing. Sharpness as well. Then graphics advanced. This is where you find stuff like resolution scale, frame rate limiter, dynamic resolution, NVIDIA Reflex low latency. I want to explain this setting. For the majority of people watching this video, you are probably CPU bound, which means you should not use enabled plus boost. You should only use enabled. You should only use enabled plus boost if you have, I think, 90+% GPU usage or something like that. So most people should just use enabled. That's the point. Anti-aliasing, you can actually turn anti-aliasing off in this game. You do not have to play with forced TAA, but here are all your anti-aliasing options. I recommend turning it off. Upscaling technique, so okay, if you want to use DLSS and all this sort of stuff, that is where you find it here. Frame generation, future frame rendering. I will say future frame rendering in this game is just kind of broken, like in 2042. It doesn't really do anything, so I would not recommend that setting at all. And then frame generation, I wouldn't recommend using it either, to be honest with you. This is where you find your performance overlay. So if you look in the upper right-hand corner of the screen right now, you can see there's a very simple FPS counter setup. If you're wondering what is your true FPS, that is the CPU readout. It is not the GPU readout. Your true FPS you're getting in game is the number, I guess, in the middle between CPU and that 0.9 you see at the top right. You can also go between, you know, extras and all this sort of stuff and turn on crazy graphs. Most of us are not going to need that, so if you want the FPS counter, here it is in advanced graphics options. Camera settings, we already briefly went over this. Field of view is personal preference. This is also personal preference. Vehicle, third person. Weapon field of view, so if you read this, this is a brand new setting, and you might notice there isn't any ADS field of view in this game, which I think this is the very first Battlefield in a long time that has not had ADS field of view. Don't know why. Weapon field of view basically makes it so if you select wider, your weapon will appear smaller on screen. If you select narrow, it'll make your weapon appear bigger on your screen. I personally like wide. You might prefer narrow. Again, we already went over this. Turn all motion blur all the way down, camera shake, turn off all of this stuff, vignette, film grain, chromatic aberration, just a bunch of effects that are just simply not needed and get in the way of actually playing the game. This is where you find all your display settings. So if you want to set full screen, borderless, you know, all that sort of stuff, it's here. Main monitor, resolution, aspect ratio, all this sort of stuff. VSync as well. Interface and HUD. If you are one of us that is immersed, right? This is where you can actually turn off the HUD in this game. This is also where you find stuff like soldier HUD motion, vehicle HUD motion, showing vehicle seats, overlays. SOVIS filter I want to talk about. From what I can gather, SOVIS filter means soldier visibility filter. This is something along the lines of Battlefield 5 player lighting. This is a visibility setting that makes enemies basically easier to see and more visible. If this setting truly does what I think it does, you should always have this on. Okay? Advanced HUD settings here now. This is where you find horizontal HUD padding. If you don't know what HUD padding does, imagine your minimap in the bottom left corner. If you want to move the minimap closer to the center of your screen, right, meaning the center bottom of your screen, so you can sort of squish the UI inwards, this is the setting to do that, and you can do it all the way up to 100, okay? Kill feed, by default, this is actually on, I think, just squatted nearby. You want to turn this to all because of all the information it gives you. You can tell if a certain player is near you and he kills somebody, you can be ready to take that fight. If he's a player you're having trouble with in the game, this is where you turn on the kill feed icons. And interestingly enough, you cannot increase your minimap size, at least not yet, in Battlefield 6, which I know is quite disappointing for a good few people. Like, I'm actually very surprised they did this. And of course, everything within the minimap section is relevant to the minimap in terms of opacity, cone edge opacity, and all view rotation, dynamic minimap, all that sort of stuff. And if you're wondering what dynamic minimap does and why I have it on, enable minimap to follow the direction the player is facing. I personally find that to be very useful. And then this is where you find your rotation setting for the minimap as well. Big map opacity, so when you hit M, this is the opacity of it. Bring up the big map. You can turn on a simplified squad lists to hide, I guess, platform IDs, shorten health and armor bars, make it less cluttered. This is where you turn on your compass, and yes, you can turn on the compass for multiplayer and then select your compass's opacity. This is where you find all of your vehicle HUD settings. So if you want a crazy looking tank HUD or a jet HUD or a helicopter HUD, this is exactly where you find it. And then more hints here: show HUD prompts, vehicle control hint size, and action prompts. All this stuff, again, up to your discretion, really. God, is that it for graphics? Let me just see. Interface and HUD. Okay, yes. Okay, now we get into some very, very, very important settings, okay? Icons and indicators. First, we're going to go into HUD icons, okay? This is where you enable the ping. If you want to see people pinging things, you should have this on. Aim-based icons opacity. Not gonna lie to you, I recommend not touching a single thing here. This is a bunch of wizardry settings. I don't ultimately find it to be that useful. I just wouldn't touch anything here. You can kind of mess up the way your HUD and UI is if you touch this too much, if you don't know what you're doing. Now, this is where we get into the very important stuff. So, this entire section, objective icons, friendly, squad, enemy icons, neutral, and ping marker icons, are going to heavily determine how much screen clutter is present when you play Battlefield 6, okay? So if you would like, you can copy my HUD settings here, and I'll just explain what these do. So, objective icon scale, this is how big the objectives are, right? In my personal opinion, we know where the flags are, right? They don't need to be gigantic, so you can afford to make them smaller. You can also afford to have their opacity be lower, so they're less intrusive in your gameplay. And this is one of the most important settings here, right? Objective icons opacity zoomed. This means when you aim down sights, objectives will completely disappear from your HUD, which is super important for visibility. The next setting is objective icons opacity occluded. I would just match this with your objective icon opacity already. Here are your friendly icons. You know your friendlies, right? You can afford to make them a little bit smaller, a little bit less visible, and of course just a little bit less visible when you aim down sights. But one thing that is very important to note, you can very easily make it so you are accidentally shooting your teammates if you set the opacity while zoomed too low, so just be careful. I find 70 works for me. I can still identify their teammates when I'm aimed down sights, and I don't accidentally shoot them. This is where you find your friendly revive icon scale, so you can change the size of friendly revive icons as well as their opacity and opacity when zoomed. Again, when zoomed, you want to turn this to 0 just to get rid of as many on-screen icons as possible. With the squad icons, copy exactly what you did for your friendly icons up here. Literally just make them identical. Enemy icons, this is your basically enemy visibility of their icons when they're spotted and their health bars and all that sort of stuff. You can actually make it up to 150, I think, percent or 150, icon scale, whatever you want to say. By default, it is 100. I would recommend leaving this section alone, if not making them even bigger for better visibility. Neutral icons. This is similar to like uncapped objectives, unmanned weapon emplacements, like a tow missile or maybe a heavy machine gun that's on a window of a map. So again, you can afford to make these smaller and just, basically get rid of them when you zoom entirely, lower their opacity, all that sort of stuff. And finally, the ping marker icons. This is the Q ping, so when you're playing with teammates and they ping something, this is the section that changes all of that. You can change the scale of it, the opacity, and then, of course, the opacity when zoomed. I find 35 when zoomed is a nice middle ground because I can still see it, but it's kind of out of the way, if you understand. Sometimes the ping is just a little too visible, and you actually can't see what you're shooting at, which is bad, of course. Okay, we're almost done with the graphics section, I promise. So go back into the graphics and scroll all the way back down to crosshair and indicators. This is where you change all of your crosshair settings. No, unfortunately, you cannot change your reticle color or like size or intensity or anything like that. You can only change your hip fire crosshair right now. This is where you find your crosshair opacity setting. Again, you want to be able to see your crosshair, so keep that 100. This is where you change the intensity of the color, I believe. This is where you change your crosshair color. Crosshair thickness, you can choose between thin, default, and thick. I already went over infantry crosshair projection. These are your hit indicators, so you can change the opacity. Basically, when you shoot somebody, how visible is that hit marker? You can change the intensity of the colors. You can also change all of the colors that relate to your gameplay and hit markers, right? So hitting someone normally is white for me. Headshotting somebody is red. Killing someone is black. The reason I do white for hit and black for kill is it goes from, well, white to black. So it's a fairly obvious indication that they are now dead, and I can stop shooting. This is where you find your armor hit indicators. These are, I think, for the upcoming Battle Royale, as armor is currently not in the multiplayer of Battlefield 6. And this is your armor broken hit indicator. This is where you find your damage indicator, which is kind of like the damage indicator for Apex Legends, if you played that. I have left everything default here, actually. I think it is quite nice, but if you want to change the horizontal position, the vertical position of it, move it farther away from your sight, move it closer to your indicator, this is where you would do that. And then, of course, you can change the damage number size and whether or not they even show up at all. So very important settings there. Oh, I just accidentally turned it off. But very important settings there for sure. I think I went over everything in graphics. Let's see. Oh, and of course, this is where you change your default chat settings. So you can set the chat to be hidden by default or when active or show. And then, of course, chat settings, just chat visibility. It's a redundant menu. I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know what DICE is doing. Let's go into audio now. Obviously, this is going to be personal preference based on what you play on. I play in headphones, so I set it to headphones. Audio mix, it's worth noting that there are a bunch of different audio mixes in this game, including War Tape's very aggressive listening, which apparently expands upon War Tapes with further raw aggression in the heat of battle. I have a feeling some of you are going to want to use that. Next up is the volume section. This is fairly self-explanatory. You know, music volume, commander volume, hit indicator volume, whether or not the hit indicator is even there, all that sort of stuff. Voice chat, this is where you enable VoIP. I have it off, but if you want to look at the menu here, you can have a bunch of different positions here. You can actually have in-world VoIP, but has reverb and distancing applied on player character location. It's really cool. There's some LARPer shit in there for sure, but I just play with it off. Accessibility, again, this is tinnitus and stereo balance from left to right. Language and subtitles. In music radio, right? You can change the individual volume of all of this. So that is it for audio. Again, subtitle settings here. System, this is where you can show player-related content. Command console, so if you want to hit the console key, right, you can enable and disable it. This is where you find very important settings in this game if you are a creator. Streamer mode and anonymous mode are in Battlefield 6. It only took them, God, how many Battlefield games to put these basic settings in the game. So happy to see these settings in the game for sure. This is where you find your minimap stuff once again. I'm not sure why it's in here, but it is. And this is where you find all of your network settings, sharing usage data, scoreboard ping. You can actually turn that on. Yes, I don't know why I didn't have that on. They do allow you to see your ping in this game on the scoreboard again, so you can see if someone is playing from Australia with 300 ping on your North American server. You can turn on VoIP stats. And this is interesting. This is where you find all of your network graphs. So in order for any of these menus you want to enable to show up, you have to have network widgets turned on. And I'll just turn some on for you to see. So this is where you find, like, you know, the damage log, or the event graph, which shows hit registration. So it shows bullets fired, bullets hit on your client, and bullets hit on the server. This will show you the exact amount of bullets that are basically no regging, right? That are doing no damage. This menu can be infuriating because it can literally tell you why you died. Because it will show you how many bullets didn't do any damage. So if you get pissed off easily, turn this off. And maybe I should turn this off because, you know, I should take my own advice, you know? And I think that is almost it. Yep, that is it. And then extras is just legal. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, ladies and gentlemen. If you did enjoy, be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button so YouTube knows this video is cool. Swing by a stream. I stream every single day at twitch.tv/enders and on this very YouTube channel. Join the Discord. All links are in the description for Instagram and all that as well. So, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.